Before I just get started, it's really nice to see that I think we've all got a common theme here, and that's a sense of urgency to be aggressive. We've been waiting for markets like this for the last 5 or 10 years. So now that we're here, it's just really nice to see other companies going after it. So with that, I'll introduce Summa. So Summa Silver is a brand new gold and silver exploration and development company focused in Nevada and the southwestern US. We put the deal together back in April and May. Since then, I've raised $13 million in 2 financings and are diligently drilling away on the Hughes property located in Tonopah, Nevada, which is about halfway between Reno and Las Vegas. So I usually like to start off these things just by briefly introducing myself. So I'm Galen McNamara. I'm a geologist by trade going back about 15 years. Before I started Summa, before we put Summa together, I really spent 2 years looking for a project. And like Ranjit's story, looked at over 100 things and was really looking for something that I could sink my teeth into and potentially spend years of my life building into a win, for my shareholders and for myself. Ended up coming to Summa and project. Before I was doing that, I was managing all of the drilling for a company called Next Gen Energy, and we made some really, really large uranium discoveries in northern Saskatchewan. Before I was doing that, I was managing the drilling for a producing gold mine, also in Saskatchewan. And we ended up making a discovery that's now in production and I think is going to end up being 2 million ounces. But anyways, none of that is to pat myself on the back. And long story short, I think as a geologist, when you've got 2 nice technical wins under your belt, what it really gives you is a sense of what works and what doesn't. It kind of provides you with that sense of scale. So my whole approach to looking for projects is really to look for that tier 1 potential. And it's a go big or go home type of approach. So very briefly, the capital structure of the company. There's 51 million shares outstanding, 59 million fully diluted. Like I was saying, we've done 2 financings in the last 4 months. The first one was $5 million at 25 cents. The second one was $8 million at $1 with a half warrant for 175. Happy to say that Mr. Eric Sprott participated in both financings, the first one and the second one for $5 million and the first one for $1 million. So he's actually our largest shareholder. The thing I really like about, our company, and this is, very similar to Mike's story before me, it's that it's a very tight structure out of the gate. So that, allows us to really be, I think, leveraged to the markets, to the precious metals markets. So the first property is called the Hughes property. We all know Nevada is this famous gold producing jurisdiction. If it were a country, it would be the 4th largest gold producer in the world or something like that. But what a lot of people don't know is that Nevada was originally known as the Silver State. And that's because of 2 famous Wild West American mining camps. The first one was the Comstock Lode up by Reno. And the second one was the Tonopah district, halfway between Reno and Las Vegas. And that's where our Hughes property is. We have the eastern half of the Tonopah district. So it's a really interesting discovery story going back to about 1900. So the camp was discovered by a guy who supposedly was chasing after his runaway donkeys as he moved from one ranch to the next through the desert. And the donkeys supposedly stopped on top of the veins. That's a story. I don't know if it's the story. But at the end of the day, in any case, the district produced 175 million ounces of silver and almost 2 million ounces of gold at grades of about 1,260 grams per ton silver equivalent. So it's a big, high-grade past producer, and very interestingly has seen almost no modern exploration at all. So when I was first looking at this thing about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I just got thinking to myself, well, if we're going to do this, what are some comps that, could represent wins if everything goes right for us here? And I kept coming back to a company like Silvercrest Mines in Mexico. And of course, they went into an old district, a lot of past production, applied some modern exploration techniques. And of course, everything goes right for them and they fire on all cylinders. But fast forward 5 years and they're sitting at a $1.5 billion market cap. So I just thought to myself, okay, well, that's a shot I want to take. So the Hughes property, and we named it the Hughes property because, interestingly, it was formerly owned by Howard Hughes back in the 70s. So that's just a tip of the cap to the rich history of the area. So this really was one of America's great silver producers of the time. The main past producing asset on the property is called the Belmont Mine. It produced something like 40 million ounces of silver and 400,000 ounces of gold at grades of about 1,250 grams per ton silver equivalent. From dozens of veins, the best one being up to 15 meters wide. And again, no real modern exploration at all. We don't even have any records of this ever being drilled. So this just zooms in a little bit and shows the area around the Belmont mine. Some information on the mine on the left, but what I like to concentrate on this slide is the map on the right. So production didn't shut down in this mine because it ran out of ore. It shut down for two reasons. At the end of the 1920s, silver and gold prices collapsed, number one. Number two, the veins, which are these red structures, ran into a fault zone called the Halifax Fault, represented by that dashed line running up and down the middle of the page. So the veins ran into that fault, and the old-time miners lost them on the other side of that fault, more or less, except for a few really interesting snips. So for us, there's really two questions left here. Number one, how much silver and gold is left to find on extensions of those veins in and around the old mine? And number two, how much silver is left to discover on the far side of that fault? So where are we at now? At the beginning of July, we began a 7,500 meter drill program with the idea of that getting us 15 or so holes. The goal being just to get a very, very good first pass, test a broad swath of targets so we could really hone in on where to follow up on in more detail. Three major targets to start. The first one is the Belmont Mine, shown just on the left side of this slide. So we've drilled 7 holes in there and just recently released assays for 3 that I'll get to very shortly. But in this area, it's just a matter of chasing up these veins where there's unmined extensions, both along strike and down dip. So that's number one. Number two, the Mizpah extension mine. This is a really interesting area because there was some small scale mining done here about 100 years ago. And the old time miners ran into grades that were up to 7,000 grams per ton silver equivalent. There was a lot of stuff that was 500, 1,000, 2,000, et cetera, but really up to 7,000 grams per ton silver equivalent, mined on only one level. And never drilled. So we've drilled 2 holes through there just to see where those veins could be, up dip and down dip. The third target, the Ruby target, that's a further kilometer out to the east, a kilometer out to the right on this map. This area is pretty interesting because in 1989, a company called Echo Bay drilled some holes in here, and one of them hit some significant mineralization. So ET7 hit 4 zones of mineralization. The best being about a meter of 1,500 grams per ton silver equivalent, 500 meters down hole, mind you, but never followed up and never drilled. So we're going to follow up on that area as well. So some of the first results, we were really happy to release results for the first 3 holes last week. These are 3 holes on different targets around the Belmont mine. And again, happy to say that all 3 holes hit some high grades in excess of 2,000 grams per ton silver equivalent. The highlight being hole 6, which intersected 596 grams per ton silver equivalent over 18.5 meters with a high grade core of 3,760 grams per ton silver equivalent over 2.5 meters. So those are the first 3 holes. There's many more to come, and we're going to be releasing them in batches over the next several months. Just showing the 2 holes in longitudinal section. The thing I like to point out here and showing these 2 holes just with pierce points with those blue dots here and here is that there's a lot of open space around them for potential high-grade ounces to be built over time. And we're going to come back here and aggressively follow up both of these results. So that's the first project. The second project is called Mogollon, and it's located in New Mexico. Ever since we started Summa, we've been looking for a second project to augment our property portfolio and really give us, double our chances at having some really good success. So I've always liked the southwestern U.S. I've always liked these old mining districts that haven't seen the light of day, and did a deal on this one in southwestern New Mexico called Mogollon. Now, this is another one of these historic mining districts that's never really had any modern exploration. But of course, where it has had modern exploration, there has been a few holes drilled. We've got some really interesting numbers like MGR 38, 14 meters at almost 600 grams per ton silver equivalent. And even the ultra high grades are there. So MGR 18, 2.3 meters at almost 2,000 grams per ton silver equivalent. So this area is interesting because, hey, where it's drilled, immediately surrounding some of those old mines, there's some great results, number one. And then number two, where it's not drilled, well, it's not drilled. So there's some very, very nice blue sky there. So just to summarize the opportunity very briefly, really going after famous high-grade past producers that really haven't seen the light of day from a modern exploration standpoint. I think there's a lot of successes of companies, using this formula in the not too distant past for wins, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Both of these projects have some really excellent large-scale discovery potential. I don't think it's wrong for any junior to say, hey, we're chasing 100 million ounces here, when in due course and if things go well, and that's definitely what we're trying to do. And then again, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in these areas. So I'm a geologist, but I try to keep things as easy as possible for me because discovery is already hard enough, and I can say that from firsthand experience. So that's it. That's the 10 to 15 minute overview of Summa Silver. If you're like me and you believe that we're in the early innings of a precious metals bull market, I would encourage you to consider building a position in the company.